Welcome back to the deep dive, everybody. We got a whole pile of listener suggestions about conjunctions, so I think a deep dive is definitely in order.
Definitely. Those little words that connect everything seem simple, but there's a lot more to them, I think, than most people realize.
Yeah, they can be deceptively tricky. I mean, we use them all the time without even thinking, right? But getting them right can really make or break a sentence.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not just about being grammatically correct, is it? It's about using the right conjunction to really get your meaning across in a clear and engaging way.
Exactly. So what do we have in the stack today?
Well, from what I've seen, we've got a mix of stuff, some classic grammar guides, some interesting articles about the evolution of conjunctions, even a blog post that compares them to Lego bricks, which I thought was a pretty cool analogy.
Lego bricks, huh? That's a new one. So I guess our mission here is to deconstruct those Legos, figure out what they're made of, and how to use them to build those grammatically sound and captivating sentences.
Exactly. And your sources all agree, pretty much, that there are three main types of conjunctions: coordinating, subordinating, and correlative. So, shall we tackle those one by one?
Let's do it. Coordinating conjunctions, those are the ones we probably learned about first in school, right? Like the fanboy.
Oh, yeah, the good old fanboys. It's hard to forget that acronym. For, and,
Ah.
nor, but, or, yet. So,
And each one of those little words has its own specific job to do when it comes to connecting words and phrases and clauses.
right, and they always connect things that are grammatically equal, like two nouns, two verbs, two phrases, or even two whole sentences.
So let's start with for. It feels a bit old-fashioned these days, doesn't it? I mean, when was the last time you actually used for in a sentence?
Honestly, probably in an email trying to sound super formal, but one of your sources pointed out that for is still useful, especially when you're explaining a reason like, Casey drank a glass of water, for they were thirsty. See how it kind of adds this like slightly more formal feel to it?
Huh, yeah, it's like you're giving a really considered explanation, not just stating a quick cause and effect, I see.
Right. And then we've got and, your workhorse conjunction.
Yeah, and, good old and, connecting everything left, right, and center. What more can we say about and?
Well, it might seem simple, but and is surprisingly versatile. One of your sources actually said that you can use and not only to list things, like Samir bikes to the park and plays soccer there almost every weekend.
But also to suggest a sequence of events like he studied hard and he aced the exam.
Yeah, exactly. So and is showing us that one action led to another. Subtle but important.
Okay. And then moving on to nor. I think this one always trips people up because it has that negative vibe to it.
Yeah, nor is definitely the negative twin of or. You usually see it paired up with neither. Like, the snack we ate was neither very tasty nor filling enough to tide us over till dinner.
So it's like emphasizing that neither option is true. Double the negativity.
Absolutely. And it's important to remember that nor always needs neither to go with it. It wouldn't sound right to say neither tasty or filling. Always neither and nor.
Gotcha. Now, what about but? This one's all about contrast, right?
Yep. But is there to introduce a change in direction or like a twist in the plot? One of your sources had this great example. It was fair but unpleasant to hear the description of the damage I'd done to the car.
Oh, I can just imagine that conversation.
Huh.
Fair but unpleasant. I can just feel the cringe.
Right. That but is doing a lot of heavy lifting there. It's highlighting that contrast and making the sentence so much more interesting than if you just said, it was unpleasant to hear the description of the damage.
Totally. Now, let's not forget or, your basic choice maker.
Ah, yes, or. Always there to present options. Simple ones like, do you like the taste of peaches or mangoes better?
Or more complex ones with a bunch of possibilities, like we could go to the movies, or we could stay home and play games, or we could go out for dinner.
Precisely. Or gives you that flexibility.
Okay, on to yet. Now, yet always seems like a more sophisticated but to me. Like it's saying, okay, this is true, but there's also this other unexpected thing.
You're right, it does have that nuanced feel. One of the examples from your sources was, Zan found her classmates' comments on her writing challenging yet helpful.
So it's acknowledging the challenge, but also highlighting that there's a positive side to it as well, yet makes you think a bit more, doesn't it?
It does. And then we have so, the master of cause and effect.
Yeah, so is all about consequences. Plenty of vegetables were ready to be picked in her garden, so Maria didn't go to the farmer's market this week. Simple, direct, this happened, so that happened.
Perfect example. Now here's something to remember about all these fanboys. They can connect single words, phrases, or even entire sentences. It's all about keeping things grammatically balanced.
Right. And speaking of balance, there's that important rule about commas when you're using a fanboy's conjunction to connect two sentences. You need a comma before the conjunction, like, I haven't been to the supermarket yet this week, but I plan to go today.
Exactly. That comma acts as a little pause, helping the reader to process those two separate thoughts. But, like with all grammar rules, there are always exceptions. If the sentences are really short, and especially if you're using and, you can often skip the comma, like I was hot and I was thirsty. Just flows better without it, doesn't it?
It does. So it's good to know the rules, but it's also good to trust your ear and your instincts when it comes to punctuation. Sometimes less is more.
Absolutely. And remember, if you're only connecting two words or phrases, you don't need a comma at all. He likes to run and jump. No comma necessary. So those are our coordinating conjunctions, the envoys.
Now, on to subordinating conjunctions. These are a bit more complex, right?
They are, because with subordinating conjunctions, you're not just connecting equal parts of a sentence, you're actually creating a relationship of dependence.
Dependence. You mean like one part of the sentence relies on the other for its meaning?
Exactly. One part becomes the main clause, the independent one, which can stand on its own, and the other part becomes the dependent clause, which can't stand alone. And the subordinating conjunction is the word that links them together and shows the relationship between them.
Okay, so what kind of relationships are we talking about here?
Oh, lots of different ones. Time, reason, condition, contrast, you name it. And your sources listed a whole bunch of these subordinating conjunctions. Because when, although, if, unless, before, after, while, since, until, as soon as, though, even though, wherever. They come in all shapes and sizes.
That's a lot to remember. Maybe some examples would help. What about because? That's a pretty common one, right?
But because is all about giving reasons, like, because it was raining heavily, I was not able to go to the hospital.
Makes sense. Because clearly tells us why something happened. What about when? Does that always relate to time?
It usually does. Like in the example, when I reached the railway station, I found out that the train had already left. So when is pinning down the exact moment when something happened.
I get it. Now, how about a contrast example?
Sure. What about although,
Yeah.
your sources use this one, although we had parked in the parking lot, the traffic police issued us a parking ticket.
Classic. So even though they parked where they were supposed to, they still got a ticket. Although, Hunter is setting up that unexpected situation.
Exactly. And then you've got conjunctions like if, which introduce a condition. Like you can play outside if you finish your homework.
So the homework has to be done before the playing can happen if sets the rule.
Precisely. Now, the punctuation with subordinating conjunctions can be a bit tricky because it depends on the order of the clauses. If the depending clause comes first, you usually need a comma after it, before the independent clause.
Like in that because example earlier. Because I woke up late this morning, I went to school without eating breakfast. So there's that comma after morning separating the dependent and independent clauses.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But if the independent clause comes first, and then the dependent clause follows, you usually don't need a comma. So, I went to school without eating breakfast because I woke up late this morning. Flows just fine without a comma.
Okay, so the comma rule for subordinating conjunctions really hinges on which clause comes first.
It does. And I think one of the most helpful things in your sources was that table that broke down all the different relationships that subordinating conjunctions can show. Time, reason, condition, contrast, place, purpose.
Yeah, that was really helpful. Seeing them all laid out like that really makes you appreciate just how much nuance these little words can add to our writing.
Absolutely. And now on to our final category.
Correlative conjunctions.
These are the tag team partners of the conjunction world. Always got to come in pairs.
That's a great way to put it. One of your sources even compared them to peanut butter and jelly. They just belong together. And both words in the pair are absolutely essential. You can't have one without the other.
So what are the most common pairs? Well, your sources list these as the heavy hitters. Either, neither enter, both hand, not only but also, and weatherer.
Okay, so either is for presenting a choice, right? Like, you can have either ice cream or a cookie for dessert.
Exactly. And then you've got neither nor, which is all about saying that neither option is true. Neither the cat nor the dog wanted to go outside in the rain.
Poor cat and dog stuck inside on a rainy day.
Then there's both hand, which tells us that both things are true or included, like both my mom and my dad are coming to my school play.
Ah, a supportive family. I like it. And what about not only but also?
Not only but also is used for adding emphasis. Like,
Yeah.
she is not only smart, but also kind. So it's like you're really wanting to highlight both qualities.
And usually the second part, the but also part, is even more important or surprising than the first part. It adds that extra oomph.
Exactly. And then lastly, we have weatherer, which often expresses doubt or uncertainty. Like, I wasn't sure whether the movie was funny or scary.
Mm.
So it's presenting those two contrasting possibilities.
Now, there's an important rule that goes with correlative conjunctions, right? Something about parallel structure.
Oh yeah, that's super important. Parallel structure means that the parts of the sentence connected by the correlative conjunction have to be grammatically the same. Like, if you start with a noun, you need to end with a noun. If you start with a verb, you need to end with a verb.
Ah, so it's all about keeping things balanced and consistent.
Exactly. Your source had a good example of this. You can either eat your dinner or go to bed hungry. So both eat your dinner and go to bed hungry are verb phrases, so it's parallel.
But if you said, you can either eat your dinner or going to bed hungry, it would sound off because now you've got a verb phrase and a gerund phrase.
Right. That lack of parallelism makes it sound awkward and grammatically incorrect. So always double-check your correlative conjunctions to make sure those parts of the sentence match up grammatically.
Great advice. And usually you don't put a comma between the two parts of a correlative conjunction.
Nope, no comma needed there.
Okay, so we've covered all three types of conjunctions: coordinating, subordinating, and correlative. Phew. But why does all this matter? Why should we care about getting these little words right?
Honestly, I think conjunctions are one of the most overlooked but powerful tools we have as writers. They're what give our writing flow and coherence. They help us to connect our ideas in a way that makes sense and is enjoyable to read.
Yeah, I remember learning about that back in school. Like if you just wrote a bunch of short sentences one after the other, it would sound really choppy and disjointed.
Exactly. Like, the sun was shining, the birds were singing, we went to the park. It just doesn't sound right, does it?
Nope, it's like a robot talking.
Yeah.
But if you add some conjunctions in there, it becomes the sun was shining, the birds were singing, so we went to the park. Much better.
Way better. And that's the magic of conjunctions. They help us to build more complex sentences and to show the relationships between our ideas.
So, what are some key takeaways for our listeners? What are the most important things to remember about using conjunctions effectively?
Well, first of all, keep that fanboys acronym handy. It's the easiest way to remember those coordinating conjunctions.
And then those comma rules are crucial. Comma before the coordinating conjunction when you're joining two sentences. Comma after a dependent clause if it comes at the beginning of a sentence. No comma usually between the parts of a correlative conjunction.
Right. And with correlative conjunctions, always double-check for that parallel structure. It's a common mistake, but it can really make your writing look sloppy if you get it wrong.
And here's an interesting one that I found in one of your sources. Starting a sentence with a conjunction. Apparently, it's not as big of a no-no as we used to think.
Yeah, that's true. Starting a sentence with a conjunction like but or so can actually add emphasis and create a more conversational tone.
So it's not always wrong, but it's something to do consciously and sparingly for effect.
Exactly. It's all about using conjunctions strategically to create the desired impact in your writing.
So there you have it, a deep dive into the fascinating world of conjunctions. Coordinating, subordinating, and correlative, they all play a vital role in making our writing clear, coherent, and engaging.
And hopefully this deep dive has given our listeners a renewed appreciation for these tiny but mighty words.
I think it has. And to leave our listeners with a final thought, I encourage you to start paying closer attention to the conjunctions you encounter in your reading and even in everyday conversations. Notice how they're being used and how they're shaping the flow and meaning of language. And maybe even try experimenting with using different conjunctions in your own writing. You might be surprised at the subtle but powerful effects they can create.
That's a fantastic idea. It's in those small, seemingly insignificant details that we can really unlock the true potential of language.
Well said. And on that note, we'll wrap things up for today. Until next time, happy writing, everyone.
Happy writing.